Hi guys, I'm Griffin. We're looking at Unit 11, Skill 4. So today we're going to start moving into the statistics part of this unit, and so we've got to talk about a little bit of vocabulary first. So your essential question says, what is an experimental study and what is an observational study? So you're going to read the following article, and you're going to highlight or annotate as you read. So make sure that you've got a highlighter with you in order to help yourself understand the key vocabulary for statistics. So we'll come back together in just a few minutes, but I want you to read up until you see the T chart on the next page. Okay? So hit pause and then hit play when you're ready to go through this together. So the first three things that I highlighted were population being the entire group of individuals or instances, the sample only being a part of that population, so a sample is a portion of the population, and then sample statistic is any summary value found from that data. So we're going to look at two different types called experimental and observational. So the next thing I highlighted was experimental study. The researcher takes measurements or surveys the sample population. And then they manipulate the sample in some manner. So whether they're giving a placebo and then giving a regular medication or something of that sort. After the manipulation, they have to then remeasure or resurvey using the same exact procedures to make sure or to see if the manipulation changed the measurements. So in the next paragraph, I highlighted a controlled experiment, separates the sample population into groups. That's important here. One group is called the control group, and it's important that you separate randomly. Every group will be manipulated, except some will remain in the same setting. That control group often receives a placebo or a fake treatment, and then because only one variable is being changed, researchers can claim a cause and effect relationship. So in this next part, it's just a quick example for you, so I'll let you read that if you haven't already. We've got one group that gets a medicine and the other group doesn't, and they want to just see if the medicine actually helps to relieve any symptoms of the headache. Okay, so then we're talking now about an observational study, and this is where the sample population is studied, measured, or surveyed just as it is. That's the important part. There's no influence on the population or no attempt to intervene in the study. There's no experimental manipulation. So unlike an experimental study, we don't do anything to the population, we just observe. This data is simply gathered and correlations are investigated. Because we do not have a control variable, the results can only allow the researcher to claim association and not causation, meaning not cause and effect. And again, here's just a little quick example. We've got SAT scores and wondering if SAT prep actually helps. Okay, so flip it over and we're going to see the next page. So here's that T-chart that I was referring to. And this just gives you differences between an observational study and an experimental study. So take a quick second to read through these and take notice of what you are reading because it's important you understand the differences. So we're going to identify whether the studies below are an experiment or an observational study. So this first one says an educational researcher used school records to determine that in one district, 84% of the children living in two-parent homes graduated high school, while only 75% of children living in single-parent homes graduated high school. So you want to ask yourself, did anything happen to the population? Were they manipulated in some way? And to me, the answer is no. We're just looking at school records. In other words, we're just observing and making a conclusion based off of it. So this is an observational study. In question 2, we have 400 patients that suffer from chronic back pain, and they were randomly assigned to one of two groups. Here's a keyword, groups. Over a 4-month period, the first group received acupuncture treatment, so they were manipulated by getting this treatment, and the second group received a placebo. As soon as you have a placebo, that means it's a controlled experiment, and therefore we are talking about an experimental study. So we'll read these next couple parts together. It says here that we've got a study or a survey is used to collect information from a specific population. So collect information from a specific population. A survey may focus on opinions or factual information depending on the purpose. Surveys may involve answering a questionnaire or being interviewed by a researcher. If you've ever heard of the census, the U.S. takes a census every so many years, I want to say 10 years, and it's a type of survey. It's broadly defined as a list of all individuals in the population along with characteristics regarding each individual. A census is really difficult to obtain because you have to try to survey everybody and get the results back. Surveys can be used in both experimental and observational studies. And this is super important in this next part here. It says that a sample population is considered random if the probability of selecting a sample is the same as, so equal to, the probability of selecting every other sample. When a sample is not random, a bias is introduced, which may influence the study in favor of one outcome or another outcome. So if you flip it over, we'll see some poorly designed surveys or samples. So here we've got this question of asking us to find the flaw in the sampling design and identify a better way to take the sample. So in question 3, it says a newspaper conducted a random telephone survey during the day regarding the percentage of stay-at-home moms and dads in the typical household. Households were randomly called, and the percentage of stay-at-home moms was calculated based on the responses. So think about this for a minute. What's the flaw and how can we do it better? To me, what stands out is that we are only calling during the day. What about the people that aren't able to answer the phone during the day? Are we calling them back at night? So the flaw is that we're only calling during the day and only using the given responses. So a way to fix this would be to call during various hours such as morning, evening, daytime, and call back if they don't answer the first time. Because again, if someone's out of the house but yet they're a stay-at-home mom, then they might not answer the call and we might not get their information. Or vice versa, if they're on the other side, they're not stay-at-home. Number 4 says all students in Mr. Rogers' stats class were surveyed in order to determine the percentage of students at Odyssey that like math. So clearly, if you're in a stats class, I'm hoping that you love math. So to me, it seems like the survey results are going to be skewed. There's going to be a lot of students in Mr. Rogers' stats class that love math because first off, they're taking math with Mr. Rogers, and secondly, they're taking a higher level math being statistics. So the flaw here is that we need to have a bigger sample. Sample isn't large enough. Right? If you ask some 7th graders in, I don't know, somebody else's class, if they like math, they might say yes, they might say no. So we got to get a larger sample. So the way to fix this is to survey more than just the stats class. Right, you could do a random survey. Random. Of any student at Odyssey in order to get the correct and appropriate survey results. Okay, so go on to your practice because it's not hard and it's not super long. I know it might look like it, but it's really not that bad. Go try it out before you take your CFU.